Welcome into Player Profiler News Primetime. I'm your host, Mike Lindberg, and I'm joined, as always, with my good friend and football expert, Coach Jeremiah. Tonight, we've got a jam-packed show for you with playoff previews, trade talks, player breakdowns you won't want to miss, from Jamar Chase hitting that triple crown in 2024 to a heated debate between who is the Dynasty QB1 between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. We are bringing back the combat zone, so you don't want to miss that one. Jeremiah filled in last week so admirably by himself, so way to go last week on taking over the duties. Appreciate you, man, and it's great to be back. Jeremiah, let's get this party started, buddy. So the Bucs, they clinched the NFC South yesterday, while the Falcons and Panthers give us a glance of the future of their division. So Jeremiah, break us down, tell us about the Bucs, and then let's get us going, man.
All right, so we had some intriguing football on Sunday. If you were watching Red Zone, they had the Bucs Saints game panned next to a lot of runtime between the Falcons and the Panthers. The Bucs clinched the NFC South 27-19. They trailed 16-6 at halftime to the Saints. Baker Mayfield threw for 2 touchdowns, 221 yards, and offered 9 carries for 68 yards. Baker Mayfield really fearless in the run game. Not reckless either, just aggressive, and you love to see it. Baker ends up with 21.6 fantasy points, QB11 on the week. Just a great season for him. Bucky Irving had 89 rushing yards. Mike, that's our guy. And a touchdown, 16.4 fantasy points, the RB10 on the week. Jalen McMillan had a beautiful 5 for 74 and a touchdown line. Shout out to our good friend Biggs. He's really big in onto Jalen McMillan. A cool 19 fantasy points for Jalen McMillan. Mike Evans, Mike, you're going to talk about him later, went 9 of 89 on 14 targets to clinch that 1,000-yard season. 17.9 fantasy points for him. He is the wide receiver 16 on the week. What was fun was the back and forth between watching that Bucs game be a sweat and the shootout that the Falcons and Panthers had. It made both games live. When week 18, there's a variety of motivations. We watch records, incentives, players are resting, guys are getting a rare shot to play. So it's a really neat mix of preseason, these games count, combined into an official NFL week. Bryce Young and Michael Penix, they traded blows. The Panthers came away with a 44-38 victory in overtime. Bryce Young is the QB1 on the week, 36.44 fantasy points, 25 of 34 completions, 251 passing yards, 3 touchdowns passing, and 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground. 5 carries for 24 yards for Bryce Young. That is something that Josh Allen does, accumulate a total of 5 different touchdowns. And we'll talk about Josh Allen later. Michael Penix, 21 of 38 for 312 passing yards, 2 touchdowns that he sent in the direction of Drake London. And Penix also got in on the ground game with a rushing touchdown, 24.98 points for Penix. The arrow is pointing up for both Young and Michael Penix. The matchup gave me a feeling that we're going to be seeing these 2 quarterbacks trade blows for the foreseeable future. From the Falcons side, Drake London is the wide receiver 1 on the week, 40.7 points, a target hog, 10 of 18 receiving, so 18 targets, 187 yards, and of course we mentioned those 2 touchdowns. Drake London did have a touchdown grab where it got called a drop, out of bounds, not enough leverage, right? Drake London, the very next play, got the leverage he needed on the defender to haul in the touchdown. He did one of these, like, hey, you're too little to him. This is the exact type of performance you're happy to have as a London Dynasty holder, but it's the type of performance you wish would have been hidden if you're trying to get high exposure in best ball and redraft in 2025. Bijan Robinson crushed as well, 28 carries, bell cow usage, 170 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Bijan, the RB2 on the week, only behind Jahmyr Gibbs, 31.3 fantasy points. And then Miles Sanders, it wouldn't be week 18 if Sanders didn't show up like he was on the 96 Bulls. 17 carries, 66 yards, and a touchdown. Sanders caught 3 or 4 passes for 50 yards and had a receiving touchdown. The receiving touchdown looked a lot like rookie season Miles Sanders. I'm happy for Sanders, but this one hurts in a way to see because Miles Sanders had so much potential for his career. I'd love to see him go to a team like the Cowboys and revive his career, but for some reason, he just can't stay healthy. On the week, though, Miles Sanders, the RB4. It's just weird. A couple of years ago, we might have said that and not blinked an eye. Now we say that and we hold pause and wonder what the context was. Jalen Coker led the Panthers in receiving, 7 for 62. Adam Thielen, 5 for 44. Ja'Tavion Sanders, 3 for 35. Had a really impressive grab. You have to watch it to see it, to understand it. Xavier Legette, just a paltry 3 for 30. Tommy Tremble, 2 for 30 with a touchdown grab. So the summation on the Panthers, they don't have the weapons to be a serious contender. They tried with Deontay Johnson. They tried with a combination of Texas players, Ja'Tavion Sanders, Jonathan Brooks. But the Panthers need more bricks to build their contending team. What is nice, though, despite all that, the improvement from Bryce Young has made, which makes you more excited for his future in the event that the Panthers go out and get some top-tier weapons. I was thinking, like, Chris Godwin would look great in a Panthers uniform. Could T. Higgins get the bag? Would Dave Tepper just say, hey, I'm going to go all in and, pull him away from the Cincinnati Bengals? So we'll see on there. Mike, what do you make of
Yeah, I mean, I got a question here. We got shout out to Jamie, who's always kicking around. Jamie, you're a homeboy. Appreciate you always, contributing, always where we go. And he's got a great question here for us. Yeah, let's pull that one back up here. London or BJT going forward. What a stretch of games Drake London has had with his new quarterback Michael Penix. He seems to be able to get the ball in really tight spaces, getting it downfield. I like this connection. This is kind of what we hoped that Kirk Cousins would have been able to do for this offense. And it's nice to see this coming from the rookie. Yes, he's an experienced veteran, but this brings his stock up quite a bit for me. He's coming in as, back in that top 12 range now of dynasty wide receivers, in my opinion. All three of these guys, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, all of them are now, in that race here. If I were to rank them as far as, which ones I would have, I think I would go Brian Thomas Jr. would be the number one out of that. I would go London very close second, and then McConkey right close. I just think McConkey had a great rookie season. Got all the metrics that we were hoping for. This probably was the best case scenario for him. But I see the Chargers maybe bringing in down the line a number one, alpha. But if you look at what happened with Quentin Johnson last game too, this could be the guy as well. So you got to think of that. Look, McConkey is going to be a great complementary piece. It's going to earn a lot of targets in the range there. But I think the touchdown regression negatively is going to come for him. So I love what I saw with London, and you can't ignore Brian Thomas Jr. and with the firing of Doug Peterson this morning, the people coming back on Trevor Lawrence, this could be a very, very awesome situation moving forwards here. And let's go and shout out to the Chiefs. Yes, we're going for a three-peat. The Mahomes era is here. Love it. I love it. Let's get going there, Jeremiah. Let's get back on track with the show. But shout out to Jamie here, kicking butt, taking names here. Thanks
Mike,
a lot, Jamie.
Tell us about speaking of top tier wide receivers. Tell us about this Jamar Chase fella and his triple crown.
Wow. Well, I mean, he wrapped up one of the most remarkable seasons in NFL history, claiming the elusive triple crown by leading the league in not just only receptions, receiving yards, but touchdowns. His 10 catches for 96 yards and his 17th touchdown in Week 18 against the Steelers not only kept the Bengals' playoff hopes alive for a slim margin until, obviously what happened with the Broncos yesterday. But it also cemented himself as the number one wide receiver in fantasy football with the franchise record 1,708 receiving yards, a career high 127 catches. Chase has proven he's the most dominant force in the passing game in the league. His combination of elite route running, big playability, and an uncanny connection with Joe Burrow has made him an undeniable fantasy asset, putting him firmly in the conversation for the 101 pick in 2025 redraft leagues and the Dynasty wide receiver 1 overall. Like I mentioned, in dynasty formats, Chase is arguably untouchable as the top receiver, with no one coming close to his production at this stage. At just 24 years old, he is in his prime of his career, paired with, Joe Burrow for the foreseeable future if they can ink that big time deal. And speaking of which, they made a big mistake, in my opinion, the Bengals, for not locking up Chase this offseason. Now he's set to make that colossal deal. It should be a long-term deal this offseason, and it should be record-breaking. Chase is now positioned to become one of the highest paid players in the league, and it's going to cost them a fortune to keep him in Cincinnati. Regardless, his fantasy value will remain unmatched, especially once he signs that long-term extension, linking him with Burrow for years to come. Jamar Chase is now firmly entrenched as the top fantasy receiver, and any fortunate enough to own him and is the most valuable asset you can think of at the wide receiver position right now. The sky's the limit for this star, and just think if they can't afford to keep, T. Higgins around, just think of the target share and the increase is going to happen here. So let's go for Jamar Chase there. But yeah, let's talk about another situation here, Jeremiah, and it's an evolving app. It's breaking the storm here. It is all the rage, and the Podfather has something to say about it. Let's hear from him.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jaxon Smith-Njigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him, draft him, draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests, and our best ball contest for 2025 coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
Hey, go and get that Fast Draft app. It's a whole lot of fun. Underdog is out there. It's established. People are on DraftKings. There's FFPC. It's an abundance mindset. Go out, spend the $25, get the matching up to $25 deposit, and you see how much fun it is. What's neat about it is you'll draft 6 different players, and you can assign the different multipliers. I kind of think about in the DFS showdowns how you'll assign a captain, and then there'll be a second player that's in there. You get to assign a little bit more unique in this. And getting your own rankings are easy. They're very easy to sort. So that's my testament to Fast Draft. A very fun, intuitive, and just a graphic user interface. All of it good. Intuitive to what you want. Now let's talk about intuitive to what you want. We want good football. We want the Lions. We want the Vikings. Interestingly enough, this game was hyped up. The Lions dog walked the Vikings 31-9 on Sunday Night Football, the last game of the NFL season. It was close into the third quarter until, of course, the Lions pulled away. The story of the night, Jahmyr Gibbs, 4 touchdowns, 23 carries, 139 yards, 3 touchdowns combined in the passing game for 5 receptions, 31 yards, and a touchdown receiving. So 4 total touchdowns. The only thing Gibbs missed was his receiving prop of 33.5 yards. but that's more for people who are betting. Gibbs is the RB1 overall on the week with 46 fantasy points. So I talked about Bijan Robinson. It's very topical and very interesting. Bijan, the number 2 running back on the week with 31 points. Gibbs with 46. Coming into their class, it was sacrilege for some people to put Gibbs above or next to Bijan Robinson. And now it just makes you realize that, look, if you've got a take or a read on a player, follow it, because it can follow you to somebody like Jahmyr Gibbs. And I know Bijan Robinson is just getting going, but the electricity is there for Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs drafters in 2025 will have to deal with David Montgomery, but I would not let that dissuade me from drafting both running backs. I expect Gibbs and Montgomery to provide structural advantage, one in Gibbs being an anchor back for your teams, and the other in David Montgomery being perfectly priced as a 0 running back. David Montgomery went in round 7 consistently. Why wouldn't he go round 6, round 7 again? Especially if this injury cools people off and gets people more afraid of the Gibbs takeover in entirety. Let's go over to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Went 6 for 77. Amon-Ra, the wide receiver 3 on the season. An end zone trip would have made this closer to a 20-point game for Amon-Ra. But as we saw, touchdown equity was all there for Jahmyr Gibbs. Laporta, 7 for 63. Sam Laporta has been a boiling frog in Dynasty, recouping his value. Tight end 14 on the week. Talk about him a little bit later. Jared Goff ends the night with a hyper-efficient 27 completions on 33 attempts. 231 yards for him, a touchdown to 2 interceptions. It didn't matter. For the Vikings, Sam Darnold was a paltry 18 of 41, a 17.4 QBR. Again, 17.4 QBR. No touchdowns brought home in the rushing and the passing game. Cam Akers, Aaron Jones, they traded mediocre Knights. Pretty even backfield share, nothing special. Justin Jefferson held in check. 3 receptions, 54 yards. Jalen Naylor, 3 for 53. Jordan Addison, this is a remarkable line. He had a reception, 0 yards on 6 targets. It's almost like he's George Pickens. TJ Hawkinson, 2 for 9, although he did have a red zone target that could have made for a better day. But my overall takeaway between the Vikings and the Lions, they're wired differently. When it was 4th down for the Lions, there was no hesitation for the entire offense. They're going for it. That energy is just pulsating through the Lions. You can just viscerally feel it through the screen. When it was 4th down for the Vikings, deep in the Lions' territory, the Vikings went for it, but there was just this brief hesitation of will they or won't they go for it. The Vikings don't have that identity of putting the pedal to the metal, and it showed. So when it comes to it, ice water in their veins, the Lions, good or bad to their detriment, they will make sure that they put foot to gas, and whether it burns them or not, they live by it, they die by it. That's my takeaway there. And then we have it. The Vikings now on Monday Night Football will face the LA Rams, and then the Lions get 2 weeks off. Dan Campbell did say to Kevin O'Connell, "We'll see you in 2 weeks." It's kind of the best thing you can say to your opponent after you beat them. Hey, we'll see you in 2 weeks. You guys got to go out and work for it on the road in LA. Oh, yeah, it's against this guy named Matthew Stafford, and he's got a couple guys named Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Very, very tough. And Sean McVay, of course, has plenty of experience in these moments. So an immediate test, no break for these NFC North teams, as the Vikings and the Packers are going to have to go on the road, as the Lions are the class of, so far, the NFC and their own division, the NFC North. Now, talking about teams that are classes of divisions, Mike, let's talk about a player who is a class of a division, and a class of himself, a future Hall of Famer. Tell us about Iron Man Mike Evans.
First of all, let's just shout out some people in the chat here. Toronto Dave, always up there. The Mahomes era, welcome. You've got some good comments in here. Yeah. We appreciate you in the chat here, but so yeah, let's talk a little bit about Mike Evans here, folks. And yeah, what a game, what an achievement, and it was truly a remarkable milestone. It solidifies his place in NFL history. On Sunday, the Bucs wide receiver caught 9 of 14 targets for 89 yards during a 27 win over the Saints. Jeremiah went over that already, but he clinched his 11th consecutive 1,000-yard season, a feat that makes Evans the only player in NFL history to tally at least 1,000 yards in his first 11 seasons, further cementing his legacy as one of the most consistent and reliable receivers in the league. What's even more impressive is that Evans reached this milestone despite missing some games due to a hamstring injury, proving he's how durable and how elite he truly is. Some might downplay this achievement, arguing that the Bucs had to force feed Evan over the past 3 games to hit the mark, but let's not overlook the context here. Evans has consistently produced at a high level year after year, and it's remarkable and that he was able to continue this streak even when missed at least 3 games this year. From week 12 through week 17, he averaged a stellar 96 yards per game, proving that age and injuries aren't slowing him down. In fact, he averaged a career high 14.8 yards per reception this season, showcasing he's not just racking up garbage time stats, but rather making significant plays when it matters the most. As we look ahead to the playoffs, Evans will be Baker's top target, and fantasy managers should continue to view him as a high-end wide receiver one in all postseason formats, but also headed into next year. The Bucs are in a playoff spot, number 4 seed in the NFC, and Evans' presence will be crucial in this playoff run if they plan on winning 1 or 2 games or making a deep run in this playoff. So, he remains one of the most valuable wide receivers in fantasy football, especially if Tampa draws a favorable matchup in the wild card round, which they, depending on how you take it here, Jeremiah, what's your thoughts on this matchup? Do you like it?
So this matchup is a 50.5 over under. You're going to get the best weather you're going to get here in Florida. It won't be hot and humid, but it will be a lot better than what it's been on the East Coast. The beauty is, we remember the earlier season matchup between the Buccaneers and the Commanders. The Commanders had no pace for it. Remember, the Commanders really came alive. It was a Monday Night Football game, Mike, that you and we nailed it. If we go back, our analysis on what happened with Terry McLaurin, with Jayden Daniels, the back and forth with the Cincinnati Bengals. Actually, the Cincinnati Bengals took off for a lot of what we saw for Jamar Chase's Triple Crown. So a little bit of memories there. But the Commanders, this matchup presents well forward-facing for offenses. So like Jamie in the chat talking about some parlays and some bets, you're going to want to ladder somebody like Mike Evans. You're going to want to ladder somebody rushing and receiving yards for somebody like Bucky Irving. For the Washington Commanders, you're going to want to tag in on some Jayden Daniels and his rushing yards onto Terry McLaurin. It's just a great matchup for the back and forth. Secondary and tertiary players should eat. Zach Ertz, guys like Jalen McMillan who are on the come up. So that is going to be a very, very good game. It's going to be an offensive-friendly environment. It's a game, though, that could really go either way. Neither team really has a lock definitively on who will win. I'm going to predict that it's just going to swing with whoever has the ball last. It's been dramatic all year for Washington. It's bitten them at times, and it's helped them most of the times for Washington. So I really like that matchup. It's hard to say who I'll be rooting for. I'll be rooting for the skill positions on the Bucs players, because we're going to talk a little bit later about who we're going to look at in the playoffs about, hey, rising dynasty talent. There's a lot of time in fantasy football with the players who are going ahead in these playoffs who we can get a good look at their stock going up or down. So this is very valuable time to pay attention, as it is always in dynasty. And then, of course, the Washington Commanders, I'm going to be rooting hard for them. Yeah, that's going to be a great game. I really like that you pointed that one out, Mike.
Yeah, man. And you know what? To me, I think this is going to be coming down to, like you said, whoever has the ball last. To me, I think it's just playoff experience. Baker showed it last year. They won a game. They won a tight game in the playoffs here. I think this is kind of where the veteran presence is going to show. Jaden is a rookie here, and his first playoff experience, he's going to have to really be seeing how he performs under pressure. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does that. He's been in big games before, we know that, but the NFL playoffs is another fish to fry, if you will.
Put it to you this way: in the playoffs, your weaknesses get exposed. The fact that the Commanders don't offer enough looks for their secondary and tertiary options, it's Oz, right? OZ,
yeah,
for Zacchaeus,
and
then of course Luke McCaffrey has not really stepped up. So I think that's going to be a glaring thing for them if it pops up for their weaknesses in the playoffs.
Yeah, I hear you, man. All right. Well, everybody, if you are enjoying the show, don't miss out on more exclusive content. Subscribe to Player Profiler, the news YouTube channel at Player Profiler News. Follow us on X at Profiler_NFL, and visit our website at www.playerprofiler.com/news for all the latest and breaking news and its impact on fantasy football. You're going to see a lot of rookie content coming up right away. We're going to have, the Senior Bowl right ahead, the Combine, the draft. All of these things are making it really important for you to stick around here. We're going to have some great content with Player Profiler. Now, Jeremiah, one of our favorite segments here, our Bullish Bearish. Let's hit it up and let's get it started, buddy.
0-1. M.O. Come on.
A lot of fun on this segment, Bullish and Bearish. Every single week, I look forward to it, Mike. I like to see the angle that you're going to take, Bullish or Bearish, because I feel like I learn a lot from you. Any co-host that I'm on, I really like to get their angle on things. Sometimes you confirm the bias, other times you enlighten me. So I really love that. I'm going to go bullish, though, for Jaxon Smith-Njigba. JSN ends the season as the wide receiver 7. The first half of the season was terrible. It wasn't until week 9 against the Rams where JSN was the wide receiver 1 overall in the week. He went off. And remember, Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson on the other side went off. Puka Nacua got thrown out that game. This is the reverse Jaden Reed. Weeks 1 through 8, JSN has one big week where he was the wide receiver 8 overall. That was in week 2. The other 7 weeks of the first half of the year, JSN ranged anywhere from wide receiver 30 all the way to wide receiver 75. Just inconsistent. JSN had only one touchdown heading into week 9. So all those things that are important in fantasy football, regardless of it's a PPR league. You need yards, you need touchdowns. Touchdowns are still king. JSN, weeks 9 through 17, 4 games as wide receiver 13 or better. JSN had 2 weeks where he had 19.6 and 18.3 fantasy points. On those weeks, JSN was only the wide receiver 16 and wide receiver 20. So those are weeks he'd usually be higher, if not for other wide receiver boomings those weeks. So a lot better than would appear on the stat sheet. From weeks 9 through 17, JSN had 6 of those weeks of 18 or more PPR points. JSN is catapulting into a PPR magnet, but he's also proving worth in those 0.5 scoring formats, such as underdog in best ball. All right, that's very ubiquitous. Underdog in the 0.5 format. You just kind of understand it as the standard over on that platform. 9th in best ball points added, speaking of, for JSN at 124.6. His 247.7 points were 7th at the wide receiver position. JSN was 7th in receptions with 96. This is all considering the first half, the Jekyll the Hyde nature of his season. JSN 8th in receiving yards with 1,121. 6th in yak with 456. So get the ball in space, short, tight. He'll take it the rest of the way or lengthy distance. JSN ended up with 6 total touchdowns. So he had 5 in the back half of the season. JSN had 9 or more targets in a game this season 6 times. Entering year 3 at 23 years old, JSN is the exact player to smash at ADP in 2025. I'm predicting round 2 draft capital. If JSN falls into round 3, you are stealing. There'll be sirens on outside of your house. The arrow is pointing up for JSN in Dynasty, in redraft, and keeper leagues. I have a keeper league where I've got JSN somewhere around round 7, and I'll be happy to have him in round 6 as a keeper. If you were able to buy anywhere in that low range from the first half of the season, and you still held on to your conviction, and even if you got a discount too, congrats on the conviction, because you are reaping the benefits. Now, staying within the division, Mike, you've got a bearish player, Kyler Murray.
Yeah, man. And you know what? It just comes off of, a good game that he, just happened to had after I threw his name on the show sheet. But I'm still, very much wheels up or wheels down, if you will, as the 2025 season approaches, and we're going to be talking about that happening because 2024 is now in our rear view mirror. But when we talk about Kyler Murray, his overall body work of 2024, it raises some serious concerns for me, despite ending the season on a high note. In week 18 win against the 49ers, he played one of his best games of the season, completing 25 for 35 for 242 and 4 touchdowns without an interception, while also adding another 22 on the ground. That was impressive. But when you consider it was his 6th turnover-free game of the year, his highest total of touchdown passes. It's important to remember this was against the 49ers team that, is out of a run. They've been resting some players. They had nothing to play for, just like the Cardinals here. While Murray's performance was commendable, it was against a defense that it was considerably softer during recent outings, making it hard to view this as a definitive turning point. His late season highlight aside, Murray's overall struggle throughout the year has been hard to ignore for me, especially with such high expectations headed into 2024. Some had him pegged as a top 8, quarterback, coming back. He had a strong finish last year to 2023. I had him inside my top 10, so I was guilty of this. And now, he's ranked as QB11, and I see that changing because, you look at some of the guys coming in the league, some of the guys, these rookies that have performed at a high level, they're bumping Kyler out of that range. With the addition of Marvin Harrison Jr., who I thought would have been the perfect complement to Murray's skill set. Instead, the connection just hasn't materialized. Despite occasional flashes of brilliance, Murray has lacked consistency. He just can't seem to get, downfield and connect with Marvin Harrison Jr. 50% catch rate for a quarterback looking to bounce back. A 50% catch rate with the most highly touted weapon is concerning. That lack of chemistry between the two remains a super big red flag. QB11 finish in 2024 may seem decent, but he was pegged as that top 8 guy. Inconsistent passing output. He was sacked 40 times this year. That's incredible. He's not evading pressure. That offensive line needs to see some improvements. So a lot of things that are showing me some red flags. And, unless I can get a discount on him moving forward, I'm having a really hard time buying Kyler Murray in 2025 at this situation. Do you think I could sell Murray for Drake plus something? No, I really don't think. I think people are on Drake May. Drake May's already surpassed Kyler Murray, in my opinion. If you can get that straight up, I think you're winning at this stage of the game, in my opinion. I think the Patriots are only going to add around Drake May. They have everything going for them as far as salary cap, draft capital. They've got their quarterback now. They're not going to be investing in a quarterback, so they're going to have a really high draft capital situation to get a premier playmaker. Plus, they have some room in their free agency budget here. I just see Drake May with that rushing upside. He could be the next Josh Allen, like people have said. So I see this as a very good situation. So if you get Drake May as an even trade, try and do that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Drake May drafters, gamers are already going to have the endowment effect on the fact that they have him. They know what they have prior to the breakout. People are going to have the endowment effect. We talked about this on the Dynasty Pulse, Mike, about Jaden Daniels, between trading Jaden Daniels 1-for-1 with Josh Allen, trying to get both of those sides to trade. Not far behind that is this legion of Drake May drafters. They really do know what they have. And there's that old joke like, hey, I'm going to sell my car. It's a beater and it's going to be 15 grand. And you say, I know what I got. This is not one of those. When people are trying to sell, if they're willing to sell Drake May and Dynasty, they know what they've got. And in this situation, you're going to want the plus on the Kyler Murray side to even entertain a deal like that. And then Jamie did mention something about Marvin Harrison Jr. and his dad have almost the same exact rookie seasons. Yeah, it's there. And just understand, Jamar Chase, Jay Jets, Justin Jefferson had big boom rookie seasons. Devonta Smith had just a 900-yard receiving season. It wasn't anything spectacular, right? Players are all on their different track. So Marvin Harrison Jr., while he's definitely far behind BTJ, Neighbors, and Ladd McConkey, there's going to be room for growth for Marvin Harrison Jr. He's just not on that track. Now, it's time for us to get into, we've had our coach's corner, our chef's table. We're about to cook something up and check it out. So Mike and I are going to go over, normally on our coach's corner, our chef's table, it's a Monday Night Football matchup. Well, we don't have a Monday Night Football matchup. So in substitution for that, Mike and I are going to represent and talk about what we're looking at and for in the number one seeds. It's neat. All week, you're going to get those previews. We had talked about the Commanders and the Bucs. You're going to get that in one ear, out the other. It'll be coming out of your ears. You'll just have so much coverage, right? But for about 2 weeks, it's going to go dormant and silent. Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. I'm going to rip on the Lions here. And we're also going to talk about players to watch in the playoffs headed into next year. The Lions are the number one seed. They're a highly explosive team. Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and Jameson Williams all score very high on our explosive rating EPX metric at Player Profiler. On a weekly basis, when we did studs and duds on this show, Lions players have lived in the top 3, in the top 5, and safely top 12 aplenty. The Lions are the perfect example of draft good players on good teams in fantasy football. If you buy just a share of Apple, you're better off buying that than 10 shares of a lesser company. Compare the Lions to somebody like the Titans. Pretend the Lions are Apple and the Titans are just a mini cap stock, right? If you blindly selected Lions across ADP in 2024, it was better practice than trying to find who would be good on the Titans. So the 2 players I am watching to see their stock rise for the Detroit Lions. Remember, Gabe Davis, how much his performance against the Chiefs inflated his ADP into the next season. The 2 players that I'm watching are Sam Laporta and Jameson Williams. We know Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra, they're solved equations. You pay a first-round price in your redraft, in your underdog best ball drafts, and you reap the benefits on an elite offense. Finishing strong, Sam Laporta. Laporta is the tight end 8 on the season. Laporta is 3rd in explosive rating with a score of 115.3. So there it is again. Laporta has a tight end 1 or better finish in 5 of the last 7 games. Laporta is 4th in our Player Profiler Dynasty rankings. Very subtle, quiet in all the noise of McBride and Brock Bowers. Laporta just doesn't make a pin drop. Laporta will enter year 3 at the age of 24. Sam Laporta is a player that I anticipate being properly priced on underdog and in redraft to where I will click the button much more. Laporta's price was vastly inflated in 2024. We're talking round 3. Similar to a guy like CJ Stroud, Laporta's price correction is something that I'm looking forward to. Laporta may make this anticipated discount go away, though, with superb play in the playoffs. Drake London is an example of this. He drops a 40 burger in week 18. There goes the dip that I thought that I'd get. For Jameson Williams, it's simply, will he have boom performances in the playoffs that give us the inclination that Jameson Williams will be a more consistent performer? JMO this season has 4 top 12 games, weeks 1, 11, 16, and 17, all over the map. If you were starting Jameson Williams, you were taking a lot of L's throughout the season as your second receiver, your third receiver, one of your flexes. So I imagine in lineup leagues, JMO was a decision where, did you get those 4 weeks? Did you capture that WAR value? I think not, unless you blindly started and took the L's on some deeper teams for those lower weeks. I expect Jared Goff to facilitate an offense that can hang 4 and 5 touchdowns all the way through the Super Bowl. The tempo, the aggression on 4th down, the willingness to go for it from anywhere on the field keeps the Lions dangerous. They don't take the foot off the gas, and if they fail in going for it, it also subtly facilitates those shootouts because other teams, they can take advantage. If the Lions go at midfield for 4th down, they can miss. They're capable. It does happen. You live by it, you die by it, right, Dan Campbell? Then the other team has shorter field position. So that team gets shorter field position. They push out a score. They take advantage. And then the Lions are having to be in comeback mode. So it doesn't matter if the Lions are up, if they're down. They're just always being aggressive. Shy of you're trying to run a 4-minute or a 2-minute offense to seal up a game when you already have the lead. For Jahmyr Gibbs, he ends the season 6th in rushing and 3rd in receiving yards, 3rd in yards per touch, and 1st in touchdowns at the running back position. We'll see if David Montgomery comes back at all, but Gibbs can surely handle the workload. Amon-Ra St. Brown ends the season as the wide receiver 3. Amon-Ra has the slot usage combined with the red zone looks that help him get the touchdown equity. The path for success is going to run through, on a Super Bowl ride, Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra. But my secondary characters that I'm looking at in Dynasty to see if they can salvage up some value, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams, to break through and boost their stock into 2025. Mike, those are the Lions. What do you got on the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, I just want to comment on the Laporta situation. I think that, you got to be treading carefully. If you look at where his late season spike, it directly correlates with one, David Montgomery be going on to the injured reserve. So a lot of, their game plan has move towards more of a pass happy option, where if we look at the game scripts when both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in there, both Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta had suffered this year because of that. Now, once Montgomery has been out of the lineup, we saw a surge in both of their production. And so something to really look at in this offseason and maybe get some value if you are a Laporta owner to look at this, especially if he has a couple boom games in the playoffs here. Knowing that Montgomery is going to come back and they may result to more of a run-heavy offense, you may be able to get some top value for a Sam Laporta down the stretch here. So something to be treading carefully with here as far as Sam Laporta goes. Now, as far as my Chiefs go, they're number 1 seed. They weren't last year, and they had a tough road to the playoffs last year en route to the Super Bowl. But this year, different story. 2025 postseason will look a little bit different, but they still have some key people in places here. Patrick Mahomes, still a top 10 fantasy quarterback. While his MVP caliber performances might be behind him, he is still capable of lighting it up when it matters most. His recent ankle injury slowed him down significantly, but he's still averaging, a decent amount of playoff points per game here down the stretch. PPR points, he was 23.5 here down the last 4 games, including 5 total touchdowns. In the playoffs, Mahomes will continue to be a focal point for the offense. He'll deliver deliver when it matters, especially in these crucial games. But a couple of these guys that I'm looking for, in the playoffs to see what their 2025 might bring is Xavier Worthy, one of the most intriguing players headed into the Chiefs playoff run after a breakout stretch this year. He's positioned himself as a key weapon for Mahomes' arsenal. Worthy's chemistry with Mahomes is been undeniable lately, but if he could stay healthy, he'll likely be the go-to deep threat for the Chiefs. However, his future alongside Rashee Rice, who is also a promising young receiver, could also lead to some competitions for targets in 2025. Rice had a solid start to 2024 before the injury sidelined him, and with that looming suspension, his role in 2025 will remain uncertain, making Worthy's stock a little bit more volatile. The good news is Worthy's talent and his draft capital and his strong finish make him a player to watch in the playoff with big potential for next season. Now, DeAndre Hopkins, though not the primary option anymore, will be leaned on in key situations, especially during crunch time moments in the postseason. While his role has diminished with the rise of younger wide receivers, Hopkins' veteran presence makes him a valuable asset in crucial, critical playoff games. In terms of 2025, Hopkins may be, in line to, re-sign somewhere. His ability to perform when it counts could keep him relevant for another year or two, especially on a contending team. His value for fantasy managers in the playoffs could be more of a depth and potential late game hero, especially Mahomes at the helm. So for you DFS players who like to play DFS in the playoffs like I do, someone to look at in a game where you think is going to be tight for the Chiefs, I'd be looking at DeAndre Hopkins as maybe a sneaker play. Isaiah Pacheco, his stock is going to be on the rise, in my opinion, headed into the playoffs. And it's no surprise why, as the Chiefs' primary ball carry, he will be poised and he'll be leaned on heavily in key games. I think they've been just trying to ease him back into the lineup, keeping him fresh for this Super Bowl run. I think Kareem Hunt will be more of a complementary piece when push comes to shove, and I think Isaiah Pacheco will be the lead guy, getting at least 70% of the run here come playoff time. But, you never know what's going to happen with these Chiefs. So I'm going to look for him to return to his preseason 2024 form and see an increased workload. As for Travis Kelce, even though his numbers didn't reach the height of previous seasons, he remains a top-tier fantasy option. His dominance in the playoffs is going to be expected to continue. Kelce will be a key weapon for Mahomes in the postseason. And though his regular season numbers may dip in 2025, he will remain one of the most reliable targets and tight ends in fantasy, setting him up for another tight end 5 range finish next year. So the Chiefs stock, solid across the board headed into the playoffs. Mahomes, Kelce, Pacheco, they are provide the stable foundation. But these younger wide receivers like Worthy and Rice are going to be people we're going to be looking at headed into 2025 as key contributors and people that are going to be taking on, the reins as, a guy like Travis Kelce starts to fade into the sunset here. Now, Jeremiah, got over 400 people watching right now. We're with us tonight, so appreciate everybody from tuning in. Let's get into our fun segment that we haven't done in a while. So let's get into that as this offseason continues, and that is the Combat Zone.
It's go time. It's go time. It's go time. We going up. We go.
All right, so we've got Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. Mike, you want batter up first, or you want me to go? What do you got?
Go ahead, man. You could take the reins here.
All right. You've been talking a little bit. You might need a little maple syrup break, right?
You bet.
So we've got, for me, it's going to be the Lamar Jackson side. Of course, the discussion here is in Dynasty. The MVP race is hot, and point blank, you could co-MVP these two, and they both be deserving. But everybody's going to rag on the guy that they want, right? But Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, they're gridlocked also on our player profiler dynasty rankings. Both Allen and Lamar are 28 years old. They're both in that sliver thin discussion this year. Lamar Jackson ends the 24 season as the QB1. Lamar was first in explosive rating EPX with a score of 120.8. So you're getting the long rushes, the longer passes. Lamar was lethal for both. Lamar in the rushing game in 2024, third in carries and carries per game. No let up there as we approach our late 20s. Fourth in red zone carries with 19. Consider that Lamar did this with Derrick Henry versus Josh Allen, who just had James Cook. You know, when it comes to, let's take Jalen Hurts, the third party, right? Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley is back there. Hurts says, I'm taking this thing in at the 1 yard line. At the 1 yard line, Lamar is deferring almost every time to Derrick Henry. Josh Allen, when it's James Cook, Josh Allen says, this is mine. All right, I'm taking this. So it's just kind of funny. 20 to 20s, Lamar has a lot more lethal rushing action, and he's actually not so selfish in the red zone like you would think. I think part of that is to the body type of Lamar versus somebody like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. Just a very subtle thing there. Of course, Derrick Henry is a rock. So again, to sum up, just very good for Lamar, the fact that he still is fourth in red zone carries. Second in rushing yards with 852. Second in rushing yards per game with 53.3. Lamar ends up ninth with 4 rushing touchdowns. Now, with Lamar, he's a lethal passer. It's funny, with Jaden Daniels coming in, he's emerging as the number 3 guy below these two fine players. It's always, well, this guy rushes and he can sort of throw. No, Jaden Daniels is lethal in the throwing game, but so is Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson has defeated any of the early season murmurings of the haters out there who wanted him to play wide receiver. Lamar Jackson, you are very confident when he launches the ball that it's going to land on target to his players. For passing, Lamar Jackson, number 1 in yards per attempt with 8.9. Number 1 in adjusted yards per attempt with 9.8. Second in best ball points added with 106.5. First in fantasy points per dropback. First in fantasy points per game with 25.7. Second in passing touchdowns with 39. First in true passer rating with 120.9. And 6th overall in passing yards. If I've got a guy that I want in Dynasty, give me the MVP this year of 2024 in Lamar Jackson, and heading into 2025, give me Lamar Jackson as a QB1 overall in Dynasty Fantasy Football. What do you got to say to that, Mike?
Well, this is all recency biased. We could always, talk about the number 1 quarterback or the number 2 quarterback season after season. But let's rewind a little bit here, Jeremiah. Talk a little bit about, these 2 quarterbacks headed into 2024. Josh Allen continued to be one of the most dominant quarterbacks in fantasy football, maintaining his place among the league's elite with a blend of elite passing, rushing abilities. He's been the model of consistency, finishing as a top 2 fantasy quarterback 5 seasons in a row. His ability to throw for 4,000 plus yards, rush for touchdowns makes him the undeniable dual threat, contributing to his consistency and fantasy performances. Despite the rise of other quarterbacks like your Lamar Jackson, Allen's remarkable stats over the years make him the safer and more reliable choice for Dynasty League fantasy managers. While Jackson had an impressive season, his inconsistencies and volatile play often lead to a wider range of fantasy outcomes, makes him a riskier option in the long run. Lamar Jackson, despite his historical feats this year, including becoming the first player ever to surpass 4,000 passing yards and 900 rushing yards in a season, he still falls short of Allen's sustained excellence and consistency. Jackson's fantasy output is less than predictable, and while he can explode for big performances, his overall production tends to fluctuate more than Allen's. Allen's unmatched combination of durability, high level of play, and consistent production across multiple seasons solidifies his position for me as the QB to value most in dynasty leagues. Top 2 finishes 5 straight seasons, 29 passing touchdowns in 2023 and added another 15 on the ground. This year is no different. He had 14 QB1 finishes in 2023, 5 this year. So, we have that recency bias, but, he has been very consistent year after year. And in the end, Josh Allen, his consistency, durability, and overall ability to put up elite fantasy numbers makes him a better value to me. Lamar Jackson in Dynasty, while Jamat, we know that he's explosive. Lamar Jackson, his potential, it can't be ignored. But Allen's steady high-level output ensures he will remain a dependable long-term asset. When it comes to dynasty leagues, remember, it's not all about the flash. It's about the steady burn that wins the game. Coach, you can't win a marathon with just sprints. Josh Allen, the quarterback who stays steady and finishes strong every time.
So one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put out like the one favorable stat that Jamie put up here for the percent of passing touchdowns. So just a little propaganda for Lamar Jackson. All in all, though, sum it up. You've got Josh Allen, you've got Lamar Jackson. They are razor thin for a reason. You really can't go wrong. They are champagne problems to have. And we can nitpick about the weapons that Lamar does or doesn't have. Same thing for Josh Allen that they do or don't have. The one thing Ray G on DD Fantasy Football always talks about the truck or the trailer. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are the trucks. And for the foreseeable future, not just this year, I predict that for the duration of Lamar and Josh Allen's primes, let's call it another 4 years, 4 to 5 years into their age 33 season, or maybe they slow down a little bit on some of that rushing and it's capped upside. I think we're going to get these comparisons, and it will be more of a marathon than a sprint going forward between the two players. So it'll be very interesting to see who lands the MVP award. But hey, great battle there, Mike.
I love it, man. It's been great to kind of get back to our off-season format where we can kind of fit a little bit more in there. We got some viewers that are a little less on edge because, the fantasy season is over, and, we can kind of really concentrate on, getting back to, seeing the light outside, a bit, it's
touching a little grass.
Exactly. And hopefully, we've helped you win a championship this year with all the insight. All our viewers following us this year, appreciate everybody. We are going to be here every Monday. The time, we might push it back half an hour to go live at 8 Central, at 8 Eastern time. Just push it back because there's no Monday night game. So I know our viewers will be looking for something to hitch on to. So we're going to have a ton of DFS. Jeremiah is going to get into best ball right away. I'm sure once the season starts ramping up for that, we'll have some segments there. I bet you Coach's Corner will be very much best ball derived. And yeah, man, you'll see us here. I'll talk a little dynasty and chef's table until we get into, ramping up the redraft season. So don't forget to stay with us and like and subscribe and do all the fancy stuff because we're going to be here all off season.
The best thing that you can do right now. Oh, we helped you win 10. Dog. There we go, man. We got to screenshot that, man. Clip it. Hey,
Player Profiler. Jamie's a huge fan of the Player Profiler team here, from Matt to the bottom. We appreciate the platform. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate everybody on the channel and everybody in the higher ups giving us the resources here to really do this every day.
I really encourage, and it might sound sick, but really lock in right now. Resist the urge to go away because, as Mike alluded and spoke to, we're going to talk more later in Dynasty. There's certain parts of the year where there's overlap in the format of what we play. Redraft and repetitions are all closer to August and September. Of course, best ball meets redraft. But then you get out of season. Right now, redraft isn't really much of the forefront. But just understand that getting these reps and the thought process on Dynasty in how we're going to layer in some of our strategy for best ball, each type of game and format, even some betting, each type of game and format informs the other. So it is well worth rapid. Make a commitment, a resolution, right? We're in January, year round. Get it to rotate now instead of tapping out. If you tap out any parts of the year, tap back in. Of course, go out, read, go for walks. I love doing that. Exercise, do things that are good for your health. But by all means, sharpen the saw this off season and make that commitment to where it's the best feeling in August or in your startup drafts because you have been locked in. You have the edge on your teammates or your league mates. Sorry.
You know it, dear Jeremiah. Great wisdom words there from a great mind, Coach. You know what to say at the right moment. Appreciate your wisdom as always. And from all of us here on Player Profiler News Prime Time, appreciate everybody from tuning in. And Jeremiah, take us away as you do it so elegantly.
Hey, enjoy these playoff games, especially the college. Tap into those games as well. It's just a beautiful slate. Things are slowing down. Now you can really take it in and have full focus. We will see you next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.